Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it anywhere and everywhere. You can even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works.
Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today.
Then you can go ahead and distribute your podcast to Spotify and anywhere else podcasts are heard.
Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take the conversation with your fans to the next level, Q&A polls are the best way to get them talking.
With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions.
And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. We've been using Spotify for Podcasters, and we highly recommend you give it a try. Download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters and get started. Welcome back, our fringy friends, to your Fringy Morsel. This is That's So Fringy podcast. I am Kristen.
I'm Rick.
And I'm Bethany.
And we have a fun story here out of Eugene, Oregon. Let's see, there was a high school, Churchill High School, and there was a assignment given in the health class. And here is... I will just read the assignment and then you guys can go from there.
Okay.
This is what the actual assignment was posted. The title is Fantasy Story, and it says, for those students who were absent, you will write a short story of a paragraph or two. This story is a sexual fantasy that will have no penetration of any kind or oral sex, and then in parentheses, no way of passing an STI. You will choose 3 items: romantic music, candies, massage oil, feather boa, flavored syrup, etc. to use in your story. Your story should show that you can show and receive loving physical affection without having sex. And go.
What? This is from...
This is real.
Hold on a second. So... Okay, so this place
Yes.
is telling the children to write a fantasy?
Correct.
Who's grading these?
Yeah, what weird, creepy guy is grading these?
That's my first thought. My mind instantly goes to some dude sitting there, like, grading these, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Like if you get a stain on your paper, it's an A?
Everybody gets it.
Ew!
I'm just saying.
No, everybody would get a D.
Okay. Wah, we've derailed.
Okay.
Okay,
We
what were you
digress.
saying?
Yeah, so that was the assignment that went out to high school kids.
High school age kids.
Mm-hmm.
So could be anywhere from 14 to 18.
Yeah, so in that.
I don't ever remember getting any assignment of such from health class.
Not like that. I remember from health class was for purposes of birth control, you watched a woman give live birth on a VHS video, and nobody ever wanted to have sex because we were like, that was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. That was basically the extent of it.
It looks like a monster.
And that's what she remembers.
That's what I remember.
It looks like a hairy monster throwing up. Ever doing that.
But what in the actual, like, this was a real assignment. So this middle-aged man, teacher, health teacher, who also is on the football team staff.
And taught at a different school
Yes.
before transferring to Churchill.
So he has assigned this, but It actually comes from a curriculum that was adopted in 2016. The school district of 4J adopted this curriculum from, it's called OWL, OWL, which stands for Our Whole Lives. And it's a curriculum. But the curriculum as it stood in 2016 has been revised, we'll say. So this stuff wasn't in it. My understanding is this stuff wasn't in it in 2016 when everybody voted to put this in.
Gotcha.
So then they get to, you can see revised editions of stuff all the time. I see revised editions of books and all kinds of stuff. And I guess I never really put two and two together that they can change the whole thing after it. But for something like this, something that's been voted on and voted into our schools.
Yeah, I guess I don't really know how the choosing books for schools process goes. Never been on that committee, but I think that if something that blatant was in there, it would be hard for me to imagine them just being like, yeah, that's fine. But I don't know nowadays. I'm getting to the point where I don't really know what people think anymore.
But
especially
I do feel like
in Eugene.
Very true.
Right. I do feel like if that was in the curriculum and starting back in 2016, somebody would have said something then, because we're way more off the rails as a society now than we were then. And parents, believe me, parents are outraged by this right now.
Rightfully so.
So if this was in there, and even in 2020, I think somebody would have said something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it just goes back to deception,
Or making those small compromises. You make these small compromises over and over again until finally something is blatant enough that somebody goes, hold on a second, this is not okay. So there's more. But wait, there's more.
All right.
So
shout out to Justin.
This is an assignment from February that was called, in the same class, called With Whom Would You Do It? And it involved a spinning wheel on the screen of the classroom. So, they have those spinning wheel generators. We just used it when our 17-year-old had a birthday party and we were generating a number because they were doing a hot sauce challenge, right? So you can just pull this app up on your phone, put it up on the wall, and it basically is a spinning wheel that they have in class labeled with various sex acts. When the wheel stops on one of the acts, students were asked to write the initials of both a boy and a girl in the class that they would do the activity with.
What?
A boy and a girl.
And then later on in this article, they're talking to a father of one of these students, and he said his daughter was super uncomfortable, rightfully so. So her and her friend didn't participate, but they were especially uncomfortable when he put up the generated spinning wheel and it had anal penetration and oral sex on there.
Dude.
And then each kid in the classroom had to write down the initials of not just the opposite sex, but the same sex in their own classroom that they're sitting in that they would do that sexual act with.
Wow.
But wait, there's more.
What if you don't even like anybody in that class?
Well, then you have to just...
You just have to decide.
Is this an appropriate time to write down JC, like Jesus Christ? Or would that be a bad...
Super inappropriate.
No, but like, what would Jesus do?
That's true.
Like, I don't know.
We're ready for you, Jesus. Come down whenever you want.
Yeah.
So then it goes on, and this man that they're interviewing, that his daughter was in the class and her and her friend chose to not participate. It turns out that they still got graded.
Oh.
So they still got a grade for not participating in the assignment.
Was it a D?
Oh,
Rick.
okay, Rick.
Too far.
Okay. I was curious.
So they got graded on their assignment and passed. Everything was fine, even though they didn't participate. So if there's an assignment that's put out that doesn't matter whether you participate or not, for grading purposes, then that's not an assignment.
Correct.
That's a survey.
Correct.
That's a middle-aged man's sexual fantasy is what that is. That's not an assignment. An assignment is something you get graded on, and if you don't do it, you don't get a grade on it.
Right.
I mean, that's how I grew up going to school.
Yeah, it's just weird that whether you participate or not, you still get a grade. Like, no, if you're not going to do it, then you should fail. But I don't think that's the point. It's not the point to pass or fail. The point is that you're indoctrinated with this curriculum that teaches, unity and love and acceptance and all of these different things. And they're doing it by introducing, different, because it's called, what was it called?
OWL.
Yeah.
Our whole world.
Oh yeah, our whole life. That's what it is.
Our whole lives.
Yeah, our whole life. So they're trying to do the our whole life, like your whole life, so that you're prepared. From what I read, anyway, that you're prepared for the whole life that you have sexually. And I'm just like, it even talks about like abortion. Like choosing your own body and being able to make your own choices, and like contraception and all of these different things, which is fine to talk about to a point, but
well, sure,
don't talk about it in the way that you're almost saying you can be free to have as much sex as you want all the time with whoever you want, whenever you want, as long as you wear protection. And that's the message that it seems like this curriculum is giving, is that you can just have sex whenever you want. Boy, girl, sheep, like it doesn't really matter. Like you can do whatever you want as long as you protect what? Well, it's telling you to protect yourself.
your body, your temple.
Yeah, yourself. So as long as you protect yourself, which is like the number one thing.
And we're talking physically protecting yourself. There are proven emotional connections that happen. There's chemical exchange that happens when you sleep with somebody or have a sexual encounter with somebody.
Yeah.
And nobody's teaching these kids that part of it.
Correct.
You can teach kids biology all you want.
Right.
And that, trust me, you put a bunch of teenagers in a room together and they're going to figure that part out. That's the easy part. The hard part is teaching kids how to emotionally be prepared and be ready and all of the things that come along with it on that side. Like it's a totally different thing that in my opinion, that's not where the schools should step in. That's for
the parents.
Parenting comes in.
This type of stuff is for the parents. That's my opinion. I think that
teach the biology. But the rest of this sexual fantasy stuff
how does the
doesn't...
body work?
Isn't this like not regular health class? They called it something else, like health.
I'm not sure.
I thought it was a health class.
It is a health class, but it was like health
comprehensive sexuality program.
Oh,
yeah, it was like some kind of sexuality.
So it goes as probably a health credit.
Right.
To fulfill a health credit. So you can either take regular health or you can take crazy sexual health.
That was my understanding.
I don't know a teenager that wouldn't pick crazy sexual health.
As a teenager,
honestly,
of course.
like if you have to go watch a 1970s woman giving live birth, I mean, come on, what are you going to pick? Like,
yeah.
True.
But the emotional implication of this stuff, like thinking, so you're writing this essay and then you're submitting it to your teacher, and then tomorrow you have to go to that same classroom and sit across the desk from said teacher, and for the rest of the term that teacher knows your most intimate details of your sexual fantasies. Like that's so wildly inappropriate to me that it's like...
And the psychological damage it's doing to those kids,
right? It's
whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, it's basically teaching kids that you can have this sexual deviancy, and you can sit across from your teacher and act like everything's fine, everything's normal. And that, if you go back to our previous episodes of MK Ultra, that's exactly what they did. So they're fracturing these kids' mind, and that allows them to be able to go to that class and sit down and have normal school functions with this person without feeling awkward or weird or whatever, because that's a splintering of the mind, and that's what this is designed to do. But it's like so blatant now that it's like,
Yeah.
It's like a form of grooming, when you're telling these children that they can do or talk about sexual acts in a normalized area like school or a library or out in the world where these sexual things are becoming normalized. Girls are wearing almost no clothes nowadays. I mean, they've pretty much gone to no bras anymore for a lot of girls, and it gets to the point where our society is being so sexualized that it makes you wonder what is sacred anymore. What is yours anymore. You're supposed to just openly tell everybody about everything about you, and that this particular subject, sex, that isn't for everybody.
right.
And it's not for your teacher. And it's
Definitely not for your teacher.
And it's not for your football coach, and it's not for anybody else. And the fact that these teachers and faculty members, I mean, somebody is putting together this curriculum, right? Somebody is looking at it. Somebody has read this stuff. Somebody knows, even with the revisions, they know that these revisions came in. I'm sure that they reviewed it, and they're standing by it. From in the article, they're standing by that.
Well,
it is a curriculum.
So Churchill's principal did put out an email that included with the school administration and everybody.
Yeah.
That they would be working with the district office to review the context of the assignment and ultimately review and replace the OWL curriculum. And that email was put out like really quickly after this went viral on Facebook. So they're already going to review and replace the OWL curriculum. So that this tells me that they already have some kind of a plan in place for when this shit hits the fan.
Right.
Otherwise, they're going to be like, oh, well, let's look into the curriculum a little bit, or let's figure this out. But they're already talking about replacing it that quickly.
It's wild.
Like that means that they were anticipating that parents were going to freak out.
Absolutely. I think it's all about desensitizing the kids, desensitizing everybody, normalizing it, like you said, Rick. And it's not okay. Even if you're not a Christian, obviously we're very outspoken Christians, but even if you're not, like, do you want your kids learning about that from a teacher? Shouldn't you be the one to have that conversation with your own children?
And not only learning about it, but in my mind, to be a teacher is you're going to stand up there and you're going to teach what you have learned, right? So you're going to be the sponge, and then you're going to let the people know what you've learned. This is like a role reversal. Like, the teacher now is going to learn all of your sexual fantasies.
Yeah.
Like that to me is like
backwards.
That's a total reversal of an adult versus a kid subject. Like it's just crazy. So in case you're wondering where this OWL curriculum came from, I'm not going to say her name. Her name is in the article if anybody wants to look it up. But she's a former member of the Eugene School District 4J School Board, and she basically proposed this OWL program because she was familiar with the curriculum because her children had gone through OWL programs at her church.
Yep. And
So-
it's a very comprehensive program.
Right. And so I stopped at that point, and then Rick started looking up some information. He's like, what church is this? Like that was kind of surprising, but what's the name of the church? It is Unitarian Universalism Church of Eugene.
Yeah, that's a real church.
It's a real church. And, because this is just a Fringy morsel, we'll put that in the show notes, that church's website, because you can go on there and look around. It's a very, new agey type church. Obviously, I'm still having a hard time finding out what they believe.
Yeah, I just don't understand how you can take a church's curriculum that they've developed and bring it in, and then allow that church, and I'm using air quotes here, to manipulate the curriculum in a way that is not been agreed upon by any parents.
Right.
Like, how is it that these curriculums can be put in front of the children without the parents? And this is the stuff, like, when I talk about waking people up and, like, understanding what's going on in the world around you, these are the things that I'm talking about. Like, do you know what curriculum your teachers are using for your students' studies? Because we're sending them to school to learn, and we're finding out that they're learning about all kinds of crazy stuff that we don't want them to learn about. But who's to blame for this? You know, it's like, is it them for tricking us, or is it us for not paying attention?
And arming our children.
Yeah, I mean, we need to open our eyes.
Well, especially going back to the MK Ultra stuff. What age do they want to ideally get this started? Birth to 3? Is that what it was? I mean, it's like outrageous.
Under 5.
Under 5 is when this programming starts to stick the best. When you start it at 5 and below, it's like,
Well, and they have this curriculum for K through 5.
right, they have this, this, which we haven't really gone through the whole curriculum, and a lot of it was like you had to buy the curriculum, and we're not parents of 4J kids, so we didn't have access to it, so, you know, we don't know what all is in the curriculum, but they do offer this OWL program starting in kindergarten. And the other thing that I was curious about was, I guarantee you, even in our little small town, if I went to the school board and said, I have this curriculum from my church that I want you guys to implement for the school district, that would be like a big fat no. Because I have a God-believing church. I have a Bible-believing church. But you can go from this universal church, and where you don't have a God figure, you don't have one deity. It's, you know, very inclusive of everybody, all deities, all gods are welcome here. And it's okay.
I just don't see how that jives, though. Like, when we were talking about the Abrahamic family, whatever house, I just don't understand how all of these different religions, all these different faiths, all these different people can come together and say, no, we're just all good together, you know?
So there was a little blurb on the website that has, you know, that it's inclusive of everybody, including Christians and the Jewish and everybody. So my assumption is that the Christians that are going there are people that have a problem with religion, not people that have a problem with Jesus. Because, you know, if you think about it, religion, and I'm using air quotes here, the religion is what typically turns people off of the church. It's usually an encounter with somebody that went to the church that was judgy, or, you know, it's something like that. So it's the religious people or the religion itself that is off-putting. So, so if you have an experience like that at a church, what better place to go than to a place like this, where there's going to be no judgment. There's going to be no nothing. Everybody, it's all inclusive.
Right.
So I think probably the Christians that are getting, you know, led down, because I mean, honestly, that I've experienced it, Bethany's for sure experienced it, of people being very judgmental in the Christian church and in our churches. And but that's just people. That's not Jesus. That's not God. That's not the message. That's the people.
Yep.
Like, the people are the downfall of the church a lot of times.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah, so go do your research wherever you're living. See if this is happening in your kids' school districts. You know, we want to educate you guys because we just found this out last week. So it's coming to us, and then it's coming out to you guys because it was infuriating after we first read it.
And we dug in even more and found more weirdness, high strangeness.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird things going on out there, and if we're not paying attention, I've talked to people that are just like, you know, I'm good. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to
Blinders
think
on.
about it. It's just like, I have a hard time with that mindset, because it's like you're not paying attention to the world around you. Like, do you know, like I said before, do you know where your kids are getting their, or where these teachers are getting the curriculum from? Do you know what they're teaching? Do you know what's going on in PE? Do you know what's going on in the locker rooms? Do you talk to your kids? Do you even know what's going on in their lives? Do you know who their coaches are? Are you, and I understand why we don't pay attention. It's because we're so busy. And it's not that we don't want to pay attention. A lot of times we are just exhausted because we're being squeezed. We're being messed with all the time. We're being forced to be slaves. We have to make money in order to survive. And it used to be in our neighborhoods and everything, people were able to have a lot more time to themselves. People were having barbecues and doing all this. It seems like there's just like constantly stuff going on all the time. Our brains are just inundated with information from the internet and from TV and radio, all of that. And we get to the point where we're just exhausted.
Well, and the last thing you want to do is, you work your 10-hour day. By the time you get home and sit down and go through health classes curriculum, that's the last thing you want to trust that the information your kids are getting is legit, and the stuff that they're going to be taught how the human body works. They're going to be taught, how sexual diseases are spread. All of that stuff is great information. Good, wonderful. But this sexual fantasy type stuff is not, this is stuff that you can do in your bedroom at home, Mr. Health Teacher. Like, this is not stuff that needs to involve underage, minor children. Like, these kids are not 18.
Yeah, what that school should be saying is, we're having whoever was on that committee to allow this to happen, they're all fired. Because we should have a no tolerance policy for people talking to our children about sex, period. Our children don't need to talk to anybody outside of our family without our express permission about sex. We are the parents. Like, and you see this going around America right now, where these school boards, especially with COVID, they're telling people that you can't parent your kid.
Right. When
they're here with us, our rules are the rules. It's like, no. That's my kid.
Right. Well, and just the destruction of the nuclear family. They don't want parents raising their kids. That goes against their whole narrative. Yep. So I think I mentioned earlier that this particular teacher is also on the football coaching staff. So the Churchill athletic director confirmed that at this time, the school will not be making any changes to its football staff. So not only is this guy still a teacher, teaching the same class, but maybe with a new curriculum, and for surely without this assignment in it, but he's still part of the football staff, which means he's allowed access to the young men in this football program. I mean, I know the close quarters, but I had 2 boys that played football, and I know that the close quarters these guys are dealing with, and there's a lot of shady things that can happen. And we had a school not that far from here, just down the freeway, that kids they basically suspended the entire football team for a hazing incident that was sexual in nature. And in fact, I think that was the only game we won that year. Was we were basically playing their JV team because they had suspended the whole varsity. But
which is what should have been done in this situation with Churchill. To me, it feels like nothing is being done. Right. What are his repercussions? Not to mention, did you look at his rap sheet from the last school he came from?
Right. Or I don't know, maybe somebody needs to take a deep dive into his internet browser history. Like, what is this guy? Because even this guy might have this, like, he wants these fantasies for his own purposes, but he could also turn around and put that on the internet for a bunch of people. He could be part of a whole network of people that are if they're doing this in schools across America, think of how much content they're getting.
Yep.
Even if it's nothing other than, mining for information, now they know how to specifically target these kids.
Exactly.
Because they know what their specific fantasies are. So even if this teacher is above board and it's nothing other than just an assignment, which is far-fetched to me, but if nothing else, they're gathering all this information from your kids.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's a survey. It's
Right.
not an assignment, because the 2 girls who didn't do it still got a grade. So
Yeah.
It boggles the mind.
it does.
I
But
don't
y'all go
understand.
do your research, see if it's happening in your schools,
Yeah.
and let's stand up, parents.
Yeah, it's time for parents to take control
Yep.
of their households. If you're a dad out there, I'm talking to you. Stand up, take control of your household, and make sure that everything's above board. And you know what above board is because you can open the Bible and you'll find it in there. So that's a challenge to the men out there. Stop playing video games, pull up your pants, go to work, and take care of your family. And if you don't like that message, I'm sorry. That's the one you're going to get here. Go find another podcast.
Well, because the video games and the TV and all this other stuff is exactly why you don't have time to look at the curriculum that your kids are learning. Because those things are taking up your time, like it or not. They're taking up your brain. They're living in your head rent-free.
Yep.
That's a fringy throwback.
That's a fringy throwback to Bethany.
All right, you guys, we're going to get out of here. That was a fringy morsel for you. We dissected this one. You can do that too. You can go through these articles that you're seeing in your newspapers, that you're seeing online. Check your local news. See what's going on. Talk to parents.
And we'll put these in the show notes. We'll put this article. We'll put the link to that weird Universalist Unitarian
mumbo jumbo. Everyone's invited. Don't forget, in the Bible it says that the path to heaven is very narrow. It's through Jesus, and the other gate to the other place, the other direction, is very wide open. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at churches and they say everybody's welcome. Okay, that's not a church. That is a hijacking of the idea of a church. So with that said, we're going to close this one up, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Send us messages.
Yeah, we have
We
that.
like hearing back from you guys because it gives us good feedback on if you like what we're doing or not. Otherwise, we're just going to keep plowing forward because we
don't
like
care.
what we're doing. So, but we don't want to just talk to ourselves. So share the podcast. Let us know if you have topics, ideas, if you have somebody that had an experience with any of this stuff, let us know. We like to have guests on. We like to talk to people.
Yeah, we're not afraid to have regular people on our podcast. We're not like the media. We are the media now, but we're not like the media. We're not going to censor people. We're not going to take things down because we want to talk to normal people. We want to know what you people are going through in your neighborhood because that's what we're trying to bring to you. Tell us what you're going through, and we'd love to talk about it. So with that, we're going to close this one up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, all of those things. Check us out on Instagram, and that's it for this Fringy Morsel. I'm Rick.
I'm Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And we are out of here.
See ya.